right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and squirrels, welcome to David and Alex's Totally Rad podcast. That's not actually a podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Alex, and
I'm David.
We are mentors, actors, all-around advocates. We are on a journey to find others like us who may be a little different and have used their uniqueness to become mega mentors and role models for us here at Camp No Limits. So tune in with us as we deep dive into getting to know some of these superstar mentors.
Absolutely. And Alex, this is so exciting. I can't think of anyone better to be on a fictional podcast than you.
David, back at you. Back at you, brother.
Coming from coast to coast, East Coast, West Coast, we're coming together and we're joining in a fictional fake podcast. I think it's a beautiful thing. And, you know, if you have a fictional podcast, ladies and gentlemen, I think what we all understand is in this day and age, you have to have some fictional sponsorship too. So before we get started here, we've got some exciting things to share with you. We want to thank our fictional sponsors for this beautiful Totally Not a Podcast. So our first sponsor, Alex, I don't know about you, but have you ever been chatting with somebody and their breath smells like a dead butt? And you're just too nice to say it, because I understand you're such a nice guy. You're going to say, I love you to them. And their breath may smell so bad and you're getting lightheaded and dizzy. You think you're going to pass out. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, if that is you, if you are that nice person, we don't want you to be the person with the breath that is like a dead butt. So we want you to think of our first sponsor, and that is toothpaste. Now, toothpaste, wonderful product, and also we're not saying any specific brand. We're saying any brand at all. Just want to make sure they use that toothpaste 2-3 times a day and have fresh breath, even in quarantine.
That's right, David. Thank you for bringing up that sponsor. And, you know, speaking of toothpaste, ladies and gentlemen, David, remember when you first kind of moved, you know, into your place in New York City or outside of New York City in Historia there? You know, and for anybody, ladies and gentlemen, for any of those who just moved into their own place or, you know, a brand new house or apartment or houseboat, maybe you don't have any artwork hanging up in your walls, right? And it's kind of empty up in there. Well, look no further, boys and girls, because right now, Bella Tucker's Bombtastic Art, you can deck those halls and fill your space with the edgy, the raw, the beautiful masterpieces that Bella creates. And for a special time, you will receive your artwork with a personal autograph and sealed with a kiss from Bella Tucker herself.
And
I mean, wow.
That's a wow. And I think actually, Alex, that this really could ultimately be a sponsor, because I do think you can purchase bombastic art from Bella Tucker. I think if you do that, she may give that kiss added to that art. I think anything that is going to support Camp No Limits, she's going to help with that. But enough of these sponsors, Alex. I'm excited to get to our conversation because we have a fantastic first guest. The first ever guest on David and Alex's Totally Rad podcast. That's totally not a podcast. Alex, who do we have coming on in this first podcast? Not a
David,
podcast.
We got my buddy Nate Smids, or our buddy Nate Smids, Camp No Limits' family buddy, Nathan Smids. He's a really good friend. You know, when I first came to camp 5 years ago, he was the first person I met and had even talked to when I arrived at camp. I was a bit nervous, to be honest. That, you know, I'd never seen that many people that were different like myself walking around and strolling around, and I was a little taken back by all of it. But Nate approached me and was like, "Hey, welcome to camp." He had already been there for a couple of years. He's the nicest guy in the world, not just because he's Canadian, but because he kind of exudes this energy that's just amazing, man. And he's got a cool story, and I think you guys will love him.
I think you're right. Nothing better than a sweet Canadian surfer. So my gosh. So ladies and gentlemen, let's bring out our first guest, Mr. Nathan Smids. All right. Mr. Nate Smids, ladies and gentlemen. There he is.
Woo! What's up, Nate?
Big Nate. How's it going, my friend?
Going pretty good.
Excellent.
Thanks for joining us today, Nate. Our first guest.
No problem.
So, Nate, to start this off, Alex and I were just talking about how we just think the world of you, just how nice you are, how welcoming you are. Both of us had really positive experiences getting to know you, and Alex was saying just recently how you sort of took him in as he came in as a new sort of volunteer, someone that was kind of coming in that was new to camp, and you had been there for a little while and really welcomed him. But can you tell us a little bit? We did spill the beans on your nationality, that secret you keep of your Canadianness, but we said there's nothing better than a sweet Canadian surfer. But could you tell us maybe a little bit about where in that great land up north you grew up, and what life was like for you as a kid?
Sure. Happy to do that, David. I grew up in Southern Ontario. So basically where Detroit is in Michigan, I'm just across the border. So I grew up far from the oceans and surfing, that's for sure. I grew up surrounded by cornfields on a pig farm, actually. So life there was pretty relaxed. I was one of 7 kids, so we were just a big house full of kids running around in the country. We'd just be playing outside, dealing with the animals, all that kind of stuff. A very rural upbringing, basically, until I started moving on later on in life. I didn't have a limb difference or an amputation until later on, so I was just a regular childhood with no significant difficulties or anything like that. I'm up until like when it was like 20 years old or so.
Right. Now, did you play sports or anything like that, or was it mostly just kind of like running through the woods, climbing trees,
Playing with pigs,
wrestling a bear?
Yeah, that happened a few times, but no. No, at school I played soccer, baseball a little bit, a little bit of track and field. Crushed it at high jump for a while there when I was younger. But that was it. I wasn't a huge team sports guy. I was more outdoors. Like I do a lot of like canoe trips, backpacking, more of the outdoorsy kind of things. So.
and Nate, you kind of hopped around a few different states and countries in your early adulthood, huh?
Yeah, actually, sure. It's funny how that all life takes its different courses and stuff. But when I was in school, I was studying like adventure tourism, and in the course of that, I ended up having a snowboarding accident, which led to my amputation. Basically, I had just a really when I fell from about like 15 feet up off this jump, broke my leg. Long story really short, I just had a really bad infection into my bone, which in my tibia, which led to the doctors basically saying we either cut it off and try and save what we have, or maybe risk losing more. So, but that's what kind of started the whole traveling, because when I lost the leg, I was so used to just being like outdoors and doing a lot of that fun stuff. So I bought a sea kayak, so I figured I could still sit, but still get out in the ocean, or still be in nature, but not have to walk too much. But I love that, so I got certified as an instructor in doing that, which allowed me to start traveling. I had a lot of wanderlust, wanted to like see the world. I was on a farm around cornfields, so you just want to get out and see the world at that point.
Sure.
So the kayaking led me to like different areas, west coast of Canada. I worked in New Zealand for about a year or so, and then in Norway for a little while. And did a lot of traveling to different countries for fun in the off seasons and stuff. But my early 20s were a fun time of traveling around and just getting used to having an amputation. And
Dude, that's awesome. And you were in your early 20s when the accident happened, snowboarding?
Yes, definitely. 20 years old. I'm pretty sure
Wow.
it's 20 years old. And yeah, just snowboarding is what was a microcosm of it all.
So did you find like that traveling to all those different places and kind of having that wanderlust cool experiences was a way to kind of like get to know yourself after the amputation?
Definitely, yeah. Like right after, like as soon as I was able to walk good enough, my mother gave me her minivan, our old family minivan, and I took the beds out. And I started like van life before it was cool, basically. And I drove up to Alaska with my buddy, and that just started at the journey, basically, of just traveling and getting used to the leg. But when you travel in your 20s, like everyone's similar age, and like everyone just thought what I had was so cool. What I was doing was just so cool that I just constantly got positive feedback, which built my confidence, basically, and being like, this is no big deal, you know? So.
Right. And how, I mean, do you, when you think back to that, Nate, did you, sorry about that. What was that mindset? Was there a journey that you went through to get back into that mindset of getting back involved, or was it just taking time?
Yeah, I don't know. I think prior to the amputation stuff, I was in an adventure tourism program where we were always like kind of traveling more in a smaller community area, but just doing a lot of fun outdoor stuff. And then when I first had my injury, like it was over like a 9-month period that I was in and out of the hospitals, sitting at home. And after just spending that time, I was just so antsy to get going and moving forward with life. And once I got my prosthetic, I just kind of like felt whole or complete again. Like it was just a weird feeling, but I just felt like, yeah, whole. It's kind of a weird, not that the prosthetic should have to give you that feeling, but it did for me in that aspect. And
well, because I think that brings me back a little bit, because we had talked a little bit before that one of my fun experiences with you is as I was getting to know you over the last few years, you and I talked to this Boy Scout group, you know, at one of our teen camps. And for those of you who don't know, Camp No Limits has this amazing teen camp up in Maine. We go whitewater rafting, we use adaptive sports, but we are part of like a big adventure group. I think it's called Adventure Bound up in Maine. And there's several different groups that kind of come in at the same time. So we have these teenagers all with limb difference, missing, you know, multiple limbs, single limbs, upper, lower, etc., or whatever kind of limb difference they may have. And these other groups of folks who are just out to do whitewater rafting, it's kind of a shock, because there's, you know, these 25, 30 individuals with limb difference, and for the most part, no one's ever seen that many people with limb difference in one place. And this Boy Scout troop was very interesting. The master scout leader kind of came up to us and said, "Hey, my boys have never seen this many people with limb difference, and it's kind of freaking them out." And so he asked if we would maybe have some of our mentors talk. And Nate, you and I went and talked. And one of the things that came up is that sort of difference between congenital and trauma, right? That sometimes we don't talk about that. And it's so interesting how as parents or as campers are coming in and getting to know our community, there is a little bit of a difference. There's, you know, when you're born this way, you don't know anything different, right? You kind of learn to adapt, and then you have a sense of the realization of the reality of it, and that has to come later. And then when you do have limb difference through trauma or through an accident or through illness, there's that process that you have to go through, because you had that sort of life before, and then you have this new life. So I think that's very interesting of you saying it was like this 9-month period of, you know, it did take you some time to kind of begin to feel back. But I think what's awesome and what speaks a lot to your tenacity and positivity, I think, is that, you know, you found that prosthetic and realized, hey, this is going to work, and this is going to help me move forward, which I think is important for all of us.
Yeah,
it definitely. Oh, sorry, Alex.
No, Nate, you.
Okay, I was just saying too, or wanted to say is, what I had going through my experience also is like, I kind of had the choice. I could have tried a few other surgical procedures that may or may not have worked well. So I had a choice before, and I made it, you know, chose to have it amputated. So a lot of people like will wake up and not have know what's going on, but I think I had a little bit of a head start there of like mentally preparing, knowing I was going to wake up without a leg. And
Right.
then being a below-knee amputee, I'm so blessed. Like with technology, with prosthetics and stuff like that, I was able just to like start ripping at life again with with the legs and prosthetics. So it was, I'm very fortunate how well it went. So.
Yeah, I think one quick other question because like you touched on, I think all the technology with prosthetics, specifically lower extremity prosthetics, the changes that have happened in the almost 20 years, I guess, since you had this experience. But what's a way that you deal? Because I'm sure our campers and families always are wondering, what are strategies you use when you see people staring or asking you questions, things like that. What are things that you do to address those when those things happen, because inevitably they're going to happen, right?
Right. Yeah, I like talking with people. Like sometimes I go with my wife to the grocery store and I'll start talking to this person or that person. She's like, "Come on, honey, let's keep going," kind of thing.
Right.
Or not to be rude, but she knows I like talking to people and stuff. And so people like pointed out or ask questions. I'm normally pretty open. Sometimes and when I used to work before in the past, I'd have new clients each day that would ask the same question. So sometimes it gets a little old, but I've gotten really good at it. If I have time, I can give a more in-depth explanation of what happened to me with my accident and the whole, procedure, how things went. But if I'm kind of short for time, I've kind of like a quick response too. I'll just say, "Hey, I had an accident, snowboarding, my leg got infected and they had to amputate it before I lost more." But I normally will always give a response. Sometimes I kind of some people look at it and then they'll look away because they don't want to know that I caught them looking at it. So I'll always just, kind of keep looking at them. So they make eye contact again. I'll be happy to talk to them or whatever. But yeah, normally an open book, and I'm fortunate that way. And a lot of times, if I have pants on or if I'm walking around, people don't even notice a lot of times. I've worked with people
Right.
in the hospital where I work at, and I've gone upwards of 6 months before they even notice that I have a prosthetic. And they're like, "What the heck? I had no idea."
Right. Yeah, Nate, I remember you telling me a story about you going snowboarding with a bunch of friends or friends of friends, and they didn't even know the whole week that you were there, right? Until you fell and your leg came off or something.
Yeah, it was a mountain rescue course actually, and we were supposed to run and start sliding down the mountain and self-rescue with their ice axe. But as I did it, my foot hit the quick release on my prosthetic. So as I was sliding down the hill, my prosthetic was sliding right beside me down the hill, and everyone just was like, "Holy crap!" Had no idea that was happening, so they kind of freaked out. But
Right.
yeah, they didn't know. And it's not like I try and hide it, but if people don't ask, I don't be like, "Hey, look at this. My name's Nate. I have this," and I don't need to preach it,
Well, sure. I think I think that's true. I think predominantly in your experience and with lower limb difference, you do have that option of and I think I think it happens even with us with folks with upper limb difference. You forget about it. Number one, you just start going on with your life and you're not thinking about it. Right? You're doing a rescue course, or you're out for dinner, you're doing whatever, and then something may happen and you're like, boom, this reminds me of or for you it's like, I'll wear shorts today because it's hot. I'm not gonna not wear shorts and hide this thing. And
Right.
if somebody sees it, they're gonna see it. It's not a big deal. So I think that's something that we all kind of think about and all have to kind of come to terms with that. Is there anything, Nate, that you would say to yourself as that 20-year-old kid who is about to go into surgery, knows he's gonna he's gonna come out without a leg, but if you had a chance to go back and talk to him, is there anything you would want to say to him?
Yeah, I would say to him that there's a big community of people out there that have limb difference or limb loss, and there's a lot of different resources out there. You're going to be fine. When I lost my leg, I didn't know, probably because I was rural too, but for years, I didn't see anybody else that had prosthetics. I'd see somebody walk with a little limp, and I'd be like, "Hey, do you got a fake leg?" Just because I wanted to talk to them or whatever, So the future me, I'd be like, there's lots of resources out there. There's lots of great technology. You're going to be able to do everything you want to do still. Just start trying and don't stop until you get it, because there's so many great resources out there.
Wow. Yeah. And it's kind of like, that's what brings Can't No Limits together, is like you said, it's we rarely see until all three of our adulthoods a camp or a place that had this many people with prosthetics or limb differences, etc.
Yep.
So I think our Can't No Limits family is super proud to have you, Nate. And you know, do you have any advice for our Can't No Limits family watching this right now?
Just keep coming to camp. It's changed my life in so many ways. It's built a great community. No matter where I go or what I'm doing in life now, I always have, like, through social media, there's nonstop support of the Camp No Limits family. And if you're new or thinking about camp, I would say don't be afraid to try. Just come on out. You're gonna be welcomed into a great group of people that are gonna want to call you family and be your friend, even if you don't want to be friends. So.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nate. It's kind of cool. It's amazing that you became the role model that you kind of needed when you were 20, you know, and could look up to yourself. So thank you.
Well, Nate, I like I said, I can't think of a better first guest for this totally not a podcast, this fictional podcast that we have. I mean, it's totally rad, but it's totally not a podcast.
It sounds really professional to me, guys.
It does. It does. And when you see, I think our little icon's pretty cool. It's a little 80s, but it's still cool. But before we go, Nate, we're gonna thank a couple more sponsors. Again, fictional sponsors, because without fictional sponsors, we could never have a fictional podcast. So, you know, Alex, Nate, most of us, we spend our entire lives searching for our spirit animals. But for our good friend Molly Fitzpatrick, that spiritual animal comes out on a regular. So ladies and gentlemen out there, reach out to Molly Fitzpatrick, because not only will she make you feel loved and exude energy, but Molly will actually dance circles around you virtually and help you dig out that unique and beautiful spirit animal that you have inside. So give her a call, 1-800-MALL-FITZ-ROAR, and she'll be sure to help you out. And Alex, we have time for one more sponsor, but really quick. We only have a few seconds left. So,
you know, David, I don't have the sponsors listed on my screen right now, but one person I would like to shout out is you guys ever kind of wanted to capture a moment of, like, you know, when you got married, David, your wedding was beautiful, right? You wish you had that photographer that might not have been there, or for those of you who have a bar mitzvah or anything like that coming up, Jimmy McLaughlin Photography is the person to capture every essence of beauty within those moments.
That's
so
right.
Right now, Jimmy McLaughlin Photography is actually having a half-off sale. So call 1-800-Jimmy McLaughlin for your chance to capture those moments, guys.
It'll be so good, you won't even know he's there, because he won't be, because we're in quarantine. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Nate Smids, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for joining
Nate.
us.
Love you.
We'll see you guys soon. Enjoy.